For years, Japan had one problem it could never fully solve: goalkeeper. The team had speed, technique, discipline, and world-class midfielders. But in goal, there was always doubt. Then came Zion Suzuki. Born in New Jersey, raised in Japan. A teenage record breaker at Urawa Reds. A keeper talented enough for Manchester United, but brave enough to say no. Then came the pressure, the criticism, the broken hand, the doubts over whether he was really ready to carry Japan at the highest level. But somehow, Suzuki kept climbing. And now, at just 23 years old, he has become the goalkeeper Japan has been waiting for. This is the story of how an American-born kid became Japan's answer in goal. Zion Suzuki was born on the 21st of August, 2002 in Newark, New Jersey. Not Tokyo, not Osaka, not Saitama. An American city on the other side of the planet from the country he would one day represent at a World Cup. His father was of Ghanaian heritage, his mother was Japanese. And the name they gave him, Zion, was not a traditional Japanese name at all. It was something else, something that would follow him around for the rest of his life, marking him as different before anyone ever saw him play. The family did not stay in America for long. While Zion was still young, they moved across the world to Japan, the country his mother came from, and they settled in Urawa, a district of the city of Saitama. And of all the places in Japan they could have ended up, Urawa might have been the single most important one for the shape of his life. Because Urawa is football. Urawa is the home of the Urawa Red Diamonds, the most fanatically supported club in the entire country. The team whose fans fill the stands and turn the stadium into a wall of red and noise. The team whose home matches feel less like sporting events and more like religious gatherings. And young Zion lived right there in the middle of it. He went to the matches. He spent time near the club's practice pitch. He grew up surrounded by the sound and the color of the Reds, watching the players he idolized from the wrong side of the white line, wanting more than anything to be one of them. He followed his older brother into the game. That is how it started. A little brother chasing a bigger one, the way little brothers do. And early on, he made a choice that would define everything that came after. He chose to go in goal. By his elementary school years, he was already a goalkeeper. Not a striker dreaming of glory, not a winger chasing the spotlight. A goalkeeper, the loneliest position on the pitch, the one where you only get noticed when something goes wrong. And he chose it, and he stuck with it, and he kept growing. And he grew, and he grew, and he grew. By the time he reached his teens, Zion Suzuki was not built like the other kids. He was tall. He was long. He had reached that goalkeeping coaches dream about. He would eventually stand around 6'3", a big, broad, imposing frame, the kind that fills a goal and shrinks it for the striker looking up at him. But unlike a lot of big goalkeepers, he was not heavy or slow with it. He had quick feet and reflexes that snapped like a trap, the cat-like spring that lets a tall man still get down low to his bottom corners. And he had something else, something you cannot teach. A calm, a stillness. The ability to slow his own heartbeat down in the exact moments everyone else's was racing. The Urawa Reds Academy did not miss it. They could not miss it. He came through their youth system, the same system that produced so much of the club's identity, and he climbed it fast. And then, in 2019, the club did something they had never done before. They handed him a professional contract at the age of 16 years and 5 months, the youngest player in the entire history of Urawa Red Diamonds to sign professional terms. Think about what that means. A club that old, a club that big, a club with that much history. And no teenager in all those decades had ever been trusted that early. Until Zion Suzuki. The boy from the stands had a professional contract with the team he grew up worshiping. But signing the contract was the easy part. Actually, getting on the pitch was about to be a very different story. The call-ups came thick and fast. Under 15s, under 16s, under 17s, under 18s, under 23s. At every level, Suzuki's name kept appearing, and at every level, the scouts kept whispering. This kid was special. This kid was the future. This kid was one of the brightest goalkeeping prospects the country had produced in years. His professional debut finally came in March of 2021 in a cup match against Shonan Bellmare, and he kept a clean sheet. His first taste of senior football, and he did not concede. A couple of months later came his league debut against Vegalta Sendai, another clean sheet in a 2-0 win. He kept his place for the next stretch of games while the established number 1 was dropped for poor form, and he just kept doing the same thing over and over. 4 clean sheets in 6 matches. The teenager was not just holding his own, he was outperforming the man ahead of him. At the end of that first season, he was handed the New Hero Award, the prize given to the standout young player of the competition. Everything was pointing one direction, straight up, and then it stalled. Because for all his talent, Suzuki kept running into the same wall. An experienced goalkeeper ahead of him in the pecking order. A coaching staff that, when the stakes got highest, kept reaching for the safer, older option. In 2022, the club went on a run all the way to the final of the AFC Champions League, the biggest club competition in Asia. Suzuki featured in the group stage. He even had a rough night early on, a costly error after a back pass that ended up in his own net. But when the knockout rounds came around, when the trophy was actually on the line, he found himself back on the bench. The veteran got the gloves. The club went on to lift the Champions League and the Super Cup. Suzuki was a champion on paper, but he was watching the biggest moments from the sidelines, the same place he had watched football his whole childhood. And for a young goalkeeper with the world at his feet, watching was not enough anymore. He needed to play. He needed it like he needed air. And so he started looking for the exit. That is when one of the biggest clubs on the planet came knocking. In 2023, Manchester United wanted Zion Suzuki. Not as a fantasy, not as a vague rumor, a real, concrete interest from one of the most famous football clubs in the world. The kind of phone call that most young players would crawl over broken glass to receive. Old Trafford, the Premier League, the red shirt watched by hundreds of millions. There was just one problem. They wanted him as a backup. United were about to commit a fortune to bringing in a big-name goalkeeper to be their number 1. Suzuki, if he came, would be the understudy. The deputy, the man who trains all week and watches from the bench on Saturday. A glamorous role with a glamorous badge in a glamorous league. And almost no football. Most 20-year-olds say yes without thinking. The chance to call yourself a Manchester United player is the kind of thing you brag about for the rest of your life. But Zion Suzuki, barely out of his teens, looked at that offer and saw straight through it. He did not want the badge. He wanted the games. He understood something that a lot of far more experienced players never figure out. A young goalkeeper who does not play does not develop. He rots. So he said no to Manchester United. He turned down Old Trafford, and instead, he signed for a club most football fans outside Belgium had never even heard of. Sint-Truiden, a modest side in the Belgian top flight. A team that started seasons fighting to avoid relegation, not chasing trophies. On paper, it looked like a downgrade so steep it was almost a joke. The Manchester United target was off to the Belgian provinces, and plenty of people questioned it. But Suzuki was not interested in how it looked. He was interested in what it gave him. And what it gave him was a goal to defend, week in and week out, in a real European league. He arrived as an understudy once again behind another Japanese goalkeeper. And then he took the job. And he did not give it back. He played 32 matches that season. He kept 6 clean sheets for a team that was not exactly built to keep them. He posted a save percentage that ranked among the best around. And in one match against Mechelen, he made 7 saves in a single game. A one-man wall standing between his team and defeat, putting on the exact kind of highlight reel that makes the big clubs sit up and look again. The decision that everyone questioned had become the smartest move of his young life. He had bet on himself in a small Belgian town, and the bet was paying off in front of everyone. By the start of 2024, his loan was being turned into a permanent deal, and it was already obvious he had outgrown the place. The next step took him to Italy, and to one of the toughest leagues in the world for a goalkeeper to survive in. In the summer of 2024, Parma of Serie A signed Zion Suzuki to a 5-year contract. Serie A, the land of the great Italian goalkeeping tradition, a league where defending is treated as an art form, where the smallest error gets dissected for days, where a keeper has to be technically perfect or get eaten alive. And Suzuki, by his own admission, did not start perfectly. He has spoken about how at first he made a lot of mistakes, how he did not always live up to the responsibility of being the last line of defense. The step up from Belgium to Italy was real, and it bit him early. But he adapted. Fast. That calm that had always been his trademark hardened into something more useful. Judgment. Decision-making. The ability to read a situation a fraction of a second before it happened. He became known as one of the very best in the entire league at coming for high balls and claiming crosses, dealing with more of them successfully than almost any other goalkeeper in Italy. He was strong on his line. He was sharp with his feet. He was, slowly, becoming complete. Parma were not a glamorous side. They spent a lot of their time fighting near the bottom of the table. But Suzuki kept turning up, week after week, an island of composure in a team under constant pressure. He strung together a long run of consecutive starts. He racked up clean sheets in a side that conceded plenty. And the big clubs that had circled him in Belgium started circling all over again, with even more serious intent this time. He had gone from the kid United wanted as a backup to one of the most coveted young goalkeepers in Europe. The path he chose, the one everybody questioned, had worked exactly the way he planned it. But success brought a spotlight. And the spotlight brought out something ugly. Because being different in Japanese football has never been simple. And Zion Suzuki is, by the standards of a country that prides itself on being one of the most ethnically uniform on earth, very visibly different. Japan is a place that does not always know what to do with people who do not fit the single mold. Sometimes it greets mixed heritage people with warmth, sometimes with curiosity, and sometimes, in its darkest corners, with hostility. Suzuki, with his American first name and his Ghanaian heritage and his Japanese passport, has lived all three reactions. And he has felt the worst of it personally. It came to a head in early 2024 at the Asian Cup. Japan went in as one of the tournament favorites, and they suffered a shock defeat to Iraq. Suzuki was blamed for one of the goals, and then the floodgates opened. He was buried under a wave of abuse online. Not just criticism of his goalkeeping, which any professional accepts as part of the job, but attacks on his skin color. Hateful messages. A young man who had given everything to represent his country was being told, by some of his own country's supporters, that he did not belong. Suzuki has said he can handle people criticizing his performances. That is fair game. What he asked for, what he should never have had to ask for, was simply for people to stop commenting on the color of his skin. His manager said he was ashamed and appalled, and spoke out forcefully against the people who had attacked one of his players in that way. The Japanese Federation condemned the behavior as shameful and reaffirmed that there was zero tolerance for it, but the words had already been said, and Suzuki had to carry them. Here was a player who embodied a more open, more diverse vision of what Japan could be, being punished for it by the very people he was trying to make proud. It would have broken a lot of young men. It would have been the easiest thing in the world to retreat, to go quiet, to let the doubt creep in. He did not. He kept playing. He kept improving. He let his hands do the talking. And just when it seemed like he had pushed through the worst that could happen to him, his own body turned on him. In November of 2025, in a match against AC Milan, Zion Suzuki broke a bone in his left hand. For most outfield players, A broken hand is an inconvenience. For a goalkeeper, the hand is everything. The hand is the tool. The hand is the job. And his needed surgery. The timing could not have been crueler. The World Cup was just months away. The tournament he had dreamed about his entire life. The one chance to repay everyone who believed in him and silence everyone who did not was suddenly hanging by a thread. A serious hand injury, an operation, a recovery clock ticking down against a fixed date that would not move for anyone. A lot of players in that situation would have braced for the worst. Suzuki went the other way. He began his rehabilitation just 3 days after going under the knife. 3 days. He could not use the injured hand properly, so he simply worked on everything else. His footwork, his movement, every part of goalkeeping that did not depend on the hand that was healing. He attacked the recovery the same way he attacked everything, with a calm, relentless refusal to panic. And he came back. He returned to the Parma side in the spring, his hand mended, his place reclaimed, and he did not come back as a passenger. He came back and helped drag his club away from the relegation trapdoor, producing the kind of performances that keep a team in the top division when everything is on the line. There was one night in particular that announced he was all the way back. At Wembley, on the 31st of March 2026, Japan beat England 1-0, and Zion Suzuki kept a clean sheet against one of the most fearsome attacking sides on the planet, in their own backyard, in the cathedral of English football. The keeper Manchester United once wanted as a backup had just shut out England at Wembley. The doubts were running out of places to hide. He had survived the abuse. He had survived the injury. He had reclaimed his place and his form with months to spare. And now, finally, the stage he had been built for his whole life was waiting, and it was a stage he had been climbing toward at international level for years. He had already worn the shirt at the Tokyo Olympics, representing his country in front of a home crowd. He had made his senior debut for Japan back in 2022 and quietly piled up more than 20 caps in the years since. His rise made easier, as one analyst dryly noted, by the fact that the goalkeepers ahead of him kept getting injured, kept ending up without a club, or kept losing their places. Suzuki took every door that opened and never gave the spot back. By the time the World Cup squad was being picked, there was no debate left to have. The 2026 World Cup, hosted across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The biggest tournament football has ever staged, and for the first time, Zion Suzuki would walk into it not as a hopeful, not as a backup, not as a question mark, but as Japan's undisputed number one. When the 26-man squad was announced in May, his name was on it, and the gloves were his. For a country that had spent years treating goalkeeper as its one unsolved problem, the position now belonged to a 23-year-old who had taken the hardest possible road to get there. And there was something poetic about where the tournament was being played. Suzuki was born in the United States. He would be representing Japan at a World Cup, partly on the very soil where his life began. He has spoken about what this tournament means to him. He has called it a huge chapter in his career, the culmination of everything. He said he wanted results, that how the team did mattered most of all, but that he also wanted a strong tournament for himself. After everything he had been through to get there, who could blame him? And then the football started, and he delivered. We already talked about the opening match against the Netherlands, that third-minute save off Malin that settled the whole team down. But that was only the beginning. Across that game, Suzuki produced a string of stops to keep one of the most talented attacking sides in the world at bay, and Japan fought back twice to earn a 2-2 draw. Japan got their point, and the man who got it for them, more than anyone, was the goalkeeper. A week later came Tunisia, and this time there was no drama, no nervous backs-to-the-wall defending. Japan were ruthless. They ran out 4-0 winners, a statement of intent that announced them as one of the serious teams in the tournament. Suzuki barely had to break a sweat, but the clean sheet went on his record all the same, And a goalkeeper is judged on those just as much as on the spectacular saves. From those opening 2 games, Japan had 4 points, and a goalkeeper at the back who looked like he had been doing this on the biggest stage his entire life. Japan is now in a strong position to push deep into the tournament. The position that was supposed to be Japan's great weakness has become one of its great strengths, and his name is Zion Suzuki. The big clubs are watching all of it. Manchester United, the club he turned down years ago, are reportedly ready to come back for him once again, with his price tag now many times what it would have cost them the first time. Other giants of the European game are circling too. The backup they once wanted has turned into a goalkeeper worth a fortune, and the boy who chose a small Belgian town over Old Trafford has been proven right at every single step. But to reduce Zion Suzuki to a transfer target would be to miss the whole point of him, because of what he represents. Here is a young man born in America, raised in Japan, with Ghanaian heritage, playing his football in Italy, standing in goal for the Samurai Blue at a World Cup. He is, all by himself, a picture of a wider, more connected world. A picture of a Japan that is bigger and more varied than the one some of his abusers wanted to defend. He carries the country's hopes on his shoulders while still being told by a loud minority that he is not fully one of them. And he answers it the only way he knows how: by being brilliant, over and over again, until the saves drown out the noise. That calm that he had as a child, watching the Reds from near the practice pitch, is still there. It is his greatest weapon. With a broken hand, a World Cup on the line, and the eyes of a nation, he stays still. He turns the pressure into fuel. The bigger the moment, the slower his heartbeat seems to get. From a kid in the stands at Urawa to the last line of defense for his entire country at a World Cup. From the youngest professional in his boyhood club's history to the man who shut out England at Wembley. From a backup nobody in someone else's plan to the number 1 in his own. Zion Suzuki took the long way around, the patient way, the brave way, and it led him exactly where he always wanted to be. The story is not finished. There are knockout rounds to chase, saves still to be made, and a future at one of Europe's biggest clubs likely waiting on the other side. But however far Japan go this summer, Zion Suzuki has already answered the only question that ever really mattered. He belongs. Between those posts, on the biggest stage in the world, he belongs. And maybe that is the truest measure of what he has done. For years, every Japan team was built with a quiet asterisk at the back, a position the country crossed its fingers over and prayed would not be the thing that cost them. Suzuki has erased that asterisk. He has taken the one job nobody wanted to talk about and turned it into something an entire nation can lean on without flinching. Somewhere in Japan tonight, there is a tall, quiet kid who has just decided that goalkeeper is the position for him, for the simplest reason in the world. Because he watched Zion Suzuki do it. He did not just fill the gap that Japan spent a generation worrying about. He changed what that gap could be. The weakness became the strength, the question became the answer, and the kid from the stands became the man the whole country now stands behind. Do you think Zion Suzuki is Japan's greatest goalkeeper? Tell us in the comment. We want to know your thoughts. Like and subscribe for more deep dives into the players writing football history right now. Until next time.